Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting of April the 5th, 2022. If you would stand, please, and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be aware this meeting is being streamed live on our Township YouTube channel, and the meeting may also be audio or video recorded by people present in the room. First, I have to make an announcement. It gives me a lot of pleasure. Chris Bayshaw, our Township Manager, and his partner Allison welcomed a new baby boy to their family this past Sunday. So on behalf of the board and staff, congratulations to you both on the birth of your son, and we look forward to seeing the new arrival soon.
Thank you.
In addition, I also have the pleasure of another announcement. We have an addition to the West Goshen staff to introduce tonight. On behalf of the board, I would like to welcome Jamie Jelosian to the township and thank her for joining the team. Jamie's our new Assistant Township Manager and Zoning Officer. Welcome, Jamie. Just a little bit of background, if you can indulge me here. So Jamie joins us from Middletown Township, Delaware County, where she was the Planning and Zoning Officer. Her prior experience includes roles with Chester County government as a planner with the Chester County Planning Commission and as a redevelopment team manager in the Chester County Department of Community Development. Jamie has a master's degree in community planning from Auburn University and a bachelor's degree in community planning and historic preservation from the College of Charleston, but she's originally from the Unionville, Kennett Square area. So welcome, Jamie. We look forward to working with you, and thanks for joining the team.
Thank you.
I also want to announce that the board had an executive session tonight. We met with our solicitor to discuss legal matters related to Chester County Hospital and their intention to introduce a police force. So the first item of business on the agenda is item number 3, appointment of Jamie Jelosian as Assistant Township Manager. We have to approve a resolution, number 6, 2022. Chris, is there anything you want to mention about the resolution?
Mr. Chairman, the resolution would set the 2022 salary for the assistant manager / zoning officer at $100,000.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval of resolution number 6, 2022?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you, John. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Are there any public comments or questions about approval of this resolution? Hearing none, we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Agenda item number 4 is next. I can find it. Here we go. So agenda item number 4 states a presentation and discussion regarding a proposed redevelopment for the current Quality Inn and Suites site at 943 South High Street. So I've prepared a little bit of background and introduction to this. I see quite a few folks in the room. I'm sure a lot of you are here about this particular agenda item. So I'm just going to go through some notes that I made to explain the situation. Over a year ago, in February 2021, the township was approached regarding a potential redevelopment of the Quality Inn and Suites property at 943 South High Street. A proposal was presented at a public meeting for the board to consider a repurposing of the site for 290 rental apartment units, which would require an appropriate rezoning of the property to permit that use. At the time, the board expressed serious reservations about the scale of the proposed redevelopment, with traffic access and safety a primary concern, and did not support the proposal to move forward for any further consideration. Since then, the prospective developer has continued to evaluate alternative redevelopment ideas, including discussion with the neighboring commercial property owner on Willowbrook Lane about additional vehicle access into the property. The developer has recently met with staff and individual board members on a revised redevelopment proposal, and the board has invited them to present at our public meeting tonight. The board requested that property owners within 1,000 feet radius of the subject property be notified in advance of this presentation so that you could attend the meeting and provide input to the subsequent discussion. The property sits at the very southern edge of the West Goshen Township, and in fact one of the parcels comprising the overall property is in Westtown Township. Therefore, many of the notified property owners reside in Westtown Township. The board, if you're here, the board welcomes you to our meeting, and we look forward to hearing your comments in due course. One other factor in the overall consideration of redevelopment is the ongoing concern for public safety at the Quality Inn. In recent years, this location has developed a significant crime problem with a considerable number of serious incidents and arrests. In 2021, the board heard from several residents in closest proximity to the property about fears for their safety and the deterioration in their quality of life as a consequence of the high incidence of crime. Chief Carroll has provided the board with crime statistics for this location and is present tonight to help answer questions during the discussion. In terms of a process for tonight, the developer will present their revised proposal and explain their proposed redevelopment. The board will then ask questions and make comments, and then we will ask for any public comments on what you have heard. Please note there is no action planned tonight by the board. This is an information gathering exercise only to fully understand what is being proposed, get any clarifications that are needed, and seek public input. Any deliberation on the course of action by the board will take place at a future public meeting. So with that, Mr. Tarantino, are you going to present tonight?
Sure.
Thanks.
Well, thank you very much for allowing me to come in and talk to the board and the public. I'm Sam Tarantini on behalf of Branchmore Capital, and we're the contract purchaser of the hotel property. And as you've said, we've made a significant effort in trying to figure out how to make the property be redeveloped. And I'll just go through just a very brief presentation about the existing conditions of the property, what we've done, how we got where we are, and then I have here with me, one second, Alex Meitzer, Regional Manager for Traffic Planning and Design, that can address any traffic or more technical questions. Having said that, let me just give you a little overview of the property today and where it is, the boundaries of the property at 943 High Street in Westchester, the address, and then a little overview of the area of the property that's a little bit more detail as to the entire structures that are there. They're not really visible from the road, so this gives you a little better idea. And the property has 141 hotel rooms, about 8,400 square feet of meeting space into 3 large rooms that traditionally have been used by the surrounding community for training or wedding venues, with 5,200 square feet of bar, kitchen, and restaurant that supply those events. 286 parking spaces. We would envision using less spaces than those that are existing. And the facility opened in 1971, so it's been around for a while, and obviously the structures have deteriorated over time. Currently, I don't believe the last season the pool was open, and neither is the restaurant and bar running after COVID. Those things were shut down, and the owner did not contract to have an operator run those. So the facility is running at a reduced, still getting enough hotel traffic, enough folks that are staying there, and to be an ongoing concern. It's about 83,000 square feet of space. When it was approved, it allowed for additional 100,000 square feet, or 25%, to be expanded. Obviously, that has not needed to be done in the past, or it would have to be a new owner or a proposal that would do that. But we don't foresee that being something that we would do. To give you some of the redevelopment considerations that we went through, it would have to be a property of similar size to be able to, essentially, the only thing to do is to knock down the structures and redevelop it to have new use, new buildings. To do that, it would be about the same amount of footprint that would be built upon there. And we looked at various, I'm a little stuck here on there we go. Redevelopment possibilities, and what were the different implications of each. We spent a considerable amount of time, whether it would be a retail center or medical offices or regular offices, even a fitness center, but the fitness center would have to be with some amount of retail. And then we looked at also apartments and self-storage, along with warehouse, which is by right, but warehouse we eliminated fairly early since it would be more disruptive to the community, the surrounding residential community, and the truck traffic would be even more impactful. So we looked at what would be the most beneficial and less impactful, and given that, we went to in a comparison, and just so you know, we looked at the hotel property, even though right now it's running at a significant less capacity because it's not being marketed for the wedding venues and other restaurant bar. Still, we looked at it, what it would have been doing 5 years ago or 7 years ago, as most residents saw it when it was operating at a higher capacity. So what's the potential traffic that property generates? And we compared it to other uses, and the retail ended up being about 64% greater than that potential use of a hotel. So the medical office is also significantly higher, as you can see, 40%. And the fitness, although it can't be alone, it's about 18% higher in traffic, but it would have to be married with some small amount of retail, so it would be somewhere around 30%. Now, with apartments in the current proposal, which is much more reduced footprint, we are generating about 36% less traffic. And I'll let Mr. Meitzner talk to you in detail about those numbers and how they compare. But this is just to give you an idea of how we went through, our proposal to get where we are. And as Chairman Walsh said, we started out with 290 apartments. That was only apartments in a footprint that's similar to the hotel. And after the feedback from the community and the board and professionals, we went back to the drawing table and we looked at doing a reduced amount of apartments. Sorry, folks, the clicker's a little slow. We changed up the configuration and we introduced storage, climatized storage. So it would be indoors, not your normal storage. It would be 4 stories against the ramp of 202. And with that proposal, we were below the traffic by about 12%. But we again took feedback from the professionals and everyone around, and we tried to go back and look at even creating less impact. And we ended up in the current configuration where we reduced the building footprint of the apartments, took out some underground parking, and we were able to now propose 167 apartments with the climatized storage, which produces very little traffic in comparison to any other use. And that's what we currently presented. That's today, giving you a little insight. That that building configuration would have an inner courtyard with a small pool and sort of a contained entertainment space. The building will look very similar to that, 3 to 4 stories. And that with that, I'm going to let Mr. Meister talk to you a little bit more about traffic.
Sorry, new clicker. Good evening again. My name is Alex Meister with Traffic Planning and Design. Working with Sam here to look at some relative traffic volume comparisons compared to the hotel, what it could be and what it used to be versus the proposed redevelopment. And I think it's also from a traffic standpoint, we're going to be speaking in overall traffic volumes, not only the daily traffic volume, but also it's also good to keep in mind the characteristics of the traffic. The apartments are more like our residential use, which is like the surrounding neighborhoods. So the coming and going trip generation patterns will be similar to how neighborhoods and residences come and go during the day versus, say, a hotel use that you would have large numbers of people coming and going, trying to access and egress, sorry, I'm getting my words mixed up, at one time. So it's be much more, again, more of a consistent traffic generation pattern as to what is in the surrounding neighborhood. As Sam alluded to, we looked at potential overall traffic based on the other potential uses that could be allowed under the current zoning of the project. This table summarizes what Sam was stating about how a retail, medical office, and a fitness center would all result in a net increase in potential traffic coming from the site, where the combination of apartments and the storage units, which storage units are a very low traffic generator, tend to be very off-peak and Saturday and weekend centric. And we wanted to keep the traffic, the potential traffic to and from the site as low as possible. Acknowledging we have a residential neighborhood, the access in and out is less than perfect for the site, and that we wanted to not create any kind of burden, not only from large volumes of traffic, but an increase of trucks or other types of vehicular traffic, which would be a nuisance to the surrounding neighborhood. And of course, as we work through work through this process, we would have to be performing a more detailed operational analysis, traffic impact study for the site. But as far as relative terms of the traffic, again, the apartment use is much more consistent with the surrounding residential land uses, and also on a daily basis, and also on a peak hour basis, will generate less than the hotel.
And just in conclusion, just some of the benefits, obviously, we looked at in redeveloping this property. It's obviously in decline. It will improve public safety, obviously, and to some extent, property values of surrounding properties. The community apartment residents will obviously be part of the community, not transient hotel customers, and a fiscal benefit of the township to have the commercial storage will obviously improve taxes. And we tried to make a sincere effort to make a balance between the redevelopment needs of the property and minimizing the traffic as much as we could, which would be, again, less than what the allowable current use generates, or would generate in a normal setting. So with that, I concluded, and just any questions you may have, make myself available.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. At this point, I'd like the board to see if there's any questions for either Mr. Tarantini or Mr. Meissner.
Yeah, I have a question, actually two questions. The statute just gave us there about traffic. You mentioned, or you showed up there was 1,460 weekday trips for the Quality Inn. Was that with the Quality Inn being fully utilized, following some kind of model, or was that an actual count that was made during a week or over several weeks?
So we estimated these trips using the ITE trip generation manual, which...
So in other words, it's an estimation.
It's an estimation. It's an estimation.
Because every time I pass by the Quality Inn, there maybe are 6 vehicles in there. And I just can't believe that there was 1,460 weekday trips coming in and out of that Quality Inn at this time.
That was estimated using the trip generation.
So that graph you just showed us up there really isn't showing us the reality of the situation.
Not as it sits today.
Yeah, that's correct.
Not as it sits today.
I just want to make that.
But I mean, to be from a traffic stand, I mean, and I'm not a real estate person, so but. Another hotel chain could come in, buy the property, rebrand it, and open everything back up. It's a potential. It has a potential trip generation.
It's a potential. It's a guesstimation, but it's not the reality as of today.
I will also state, just in general terms, especially using the IT trip generation manual these days, in our post-COVID world, what things do generate is it's changed. Even residential uses, retail, office space. We are, using the standards that we have are now in industry accepted.
Are there any stats currently that we can look at when the Quality Inn was at its full potential? Did anybody did studies back 10 years ago, or?
We would have to. I would have to research to see.
I'm just curious to see how that compares to what's up there, as to what was actually the traffic pattern at that time.
We would have to research back to see what may or may not be available historically back then.
I would be interested in what was the actual, the actual numbers at the time that it was full capacity and restaurant
I do not have that information with me here tonight. As I stated earlier, the trip generation characteristics of an apartment building will be different than the hotel and a banquet room and a bar and a restaurant. Again, the comings and goings of people is going to be like a residential neighborhood. You're not going to have, I go to professional society meetings all the time where I show up at 7 and I leave at 10. With 200 other people at one time, come and go at one other time. You're not going to have the restaurant letting out or having happy hour and, attracting surges of traffic like that. It's going to be like how people come and go, going to work, picking their kids up from school, doing their grocery shopping.
I have a second question. Are you familiar with our township ordinances, specifically Chapter 72-34, which has to do with access to residential developments? Are you familiar with that particular ordinance?
I'll be candid, I have not read that particular ordinance yet, sir. No.
I'll just read it to you. It says every subdivision or development with 25 or more dwelling units, including dwelling units within an apartment building, shall be accessed by at least 2 streets. In your sketch you showed of your proposal, is there a second access to a second street from the apartment complex?
Well, I'll let Sam, what I understand, Sam, please jump in, is that an additional access, he did try to well, I'll let Sam answer that question.
Yeah, obviously, there is emergency access in the back of the property currently. There are 2 entrances to it, or there's a double entrance to it. We do not anticipate exceeding the amount of traffic that is coming out of there, and the amount of cars and parking spaces will be less. So the existing use wouldn't change, but we can certainly look back and try to address. There won't be a secondary access in the back other than emergency.
Say, wasn't it true that you did try to obtain access to the adjacent?
Yes, and we actually talked to the two property owners in the back, one of which is a landscape business. They were willing to grant the access, but the commercial property owner, Redgo is their name, did not want to allow any traffic through their parking lot to reach the road in the back.
So there will not be a second access then?
No.
Okay, thank you.
So can I ask a question? So thanks for being here tonight. Can you just remind the board and everybody, maybe you guys could answer this, what is allowed by right at this property? What kind of property could be built without ever having to come to the board?
So my understanding, and Mr. Craig can clarify as well, but warehouse, retail, personal service establishment, office, laboratory facilities, medical clinics, wholesale, and storage and distribution is what I have as the C3 designation. Yeah. And we consider those, and that most of those were eliminated because of traffic, really. So.
But they are by right use.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Other questions from the board?
No, I'd be more interested to see.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Anyone else? Rick, is there an impact of the stormwater management on here? Would it be upgraded? With it fitting the kind of footprint of the quality in already? If this development was to go ahead with the stormwater experience and upgrade to it?
Undoubtedly, there would need to be stormwater improvements to meet current code. However, you also have to keep in mind that any existing impervious that they have would still be credited to new existing impervious. So there's a lot of impervious there now. So it's not quite as good a change as you would think.
Okay. And if an apartment complex was to be built, you're a developer, we experience in the township at least after these complexes are built, they get sold on by the developer within a short period of time. Is that typically how you would operate it with your business?
In terms of, you're talking about the two components?
Like if you were to build this proposal, you would not be you would sell that apartment complex onto another company.
Correct. Branchport would be a partner. There would be an operator that we typically partner with that has a operating history. We would present that very early on, that entity to the township and their track record of owning, renting, leasing, and operating these properties. Excuse me.
Was it economically viable to have a self-storage facility only without the apartments?
No, not with this significant size of this property to tear down and redevelop and site work. As you mentioned, some of the stone water and everything else that needs to be done with the site. This was the borderline most appropriate development that we could find.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
One question. Is there any major sewer upgrades that are going to have to occur as a result of the development changes?
I don't believe so. And we looked at that preliminarily. We have not talked to the authority or sewer authority, but it's 141 rooms plus the capacity of the additional commercial bathrooms. And we're proposing 167 apartments. We think that the EDUs, but we will certainly, we can certainly reach out to the appropriate authority and find out about capacity and needs between the existing flow of the property and what it needs. And I can get back to you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Before we go to public comment, I just want to explore something with Chief Carroll. You can see him back there. So, Chief, you provided the board with a table of information relative to the crime at the current location. I just want to confirm these numbers are accurate. You provided data that shows in the year 2010, there were 17 incidents requested police
Yes.
the property, and there were 0 arrests.
Correct.
3 crimes were recorded. In 2020, 10 years on, 495 incidents, 9 arrests, 26 crimes, 36 disturbances. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Has there been any change in the last 12 months since the developer was last here with proposals in terms of the overall incidence of crime, et cetera, that's occurring at this property?
For year to date, we've had 55 incidents there as of the end of March, which if you multiply that out would be less incidents, but it's also the winter time, so we would expect those to increase as summer approaches.
Okay. And in terms of resource effort by the police department, could you kind of just describe that in terms of how much time and effort is taken up by your staff on this?
Sure, so that the year 2020 when we had 495 incidents there, just the initial response by the officers took up about 151 hours of the year, of officer year. And then besides those responses, 8 of those required an additional extensive investigation, which is far more than the 17 minutes we normally spend there.
Yeah. And some of these incidents are very serious, right? We've had 2 overdose deaths in the last
Yes.
12, 24 months. We had a standoff at some point as well. So there's a serious concern that the board's already addressed in terms of conversation, at least last year, relative to public safety of this property as it stands today.
Yes, and the type of incidents we have here aren't the type of incidents in number or the type that we're seeing at the other apartment complexes in that end of the township.
And these are hotel-related issues, right?
Correct.
Very good. So is there anyone who's attending today that would like to make some comments or ask questions? If there is, please raise your hand and I will acknowledge you, and you can come up to the microphone, state your name and address, which township you reside in, and go from there. So raise your hand if you'd like to make a comment. I want to go with this gentleman here first. Don't worry, we'll get to everyone. So this.
Jeff Cantwell with East Bradford Township. Simple question. Have you done a traffic count on Route 202 North at the location of the Quality Inn? It backs up there. That'd be a valuable thing to have.
Okay. Sit here and acknowledge, having been a lifelong resident of the area, yes.
Oh.
I know what that rate lane is.
So anecdotally,
I don't have a number.
anecdotally, you'd say it's a lot. But since you're an expert, I thought I'd ask. I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you. Someone else? Yes, sir.
Good evening, board. How are you? Good evening. Thanks for making, or at least trying to make this space better. My name is Chad Weldon. I'm on Stanton Avenue. I also own a business in the borough of Westchester. And I just had a couple concerns about the development. I was one to speak up last year, this time when we did this via Zoom. I sat at that intersection of Stanton and 202, just trying to get here to this meeting today for about 10 minutes, just trying to get out on 202. My alternative is to go back around and go out on Matlack and enter on that way. Now that Beck & Collective has built their apartment complex, I now am lucky if I'm the first one out at that traffic light because of all those apartments that sit on Beck & Collective, which I'm not sure is the quantity. I'm not sure if anybody knows, but that's another 200 apartments that were just built a year ago. There are 30 apartment complexes within 3 miles of Stanton Avenue, which sits right behind the complex that you guys want to build. Did you know that? Okay, there are 30 within 3 miles. My concern is being a neighbor on Stanton Avenue, light and noise pollution. I see the light of the hotel, and that's only 2 stories. You're projecting to build a 3 or 4 story hotel. I can't imagine what that's going to do to my backyard and everybody else who lives on Stanton and Walnut. Noise pollution. I hear you on residential. My concern is those are residents. They stay there 24 hours a day. That's my concern. I'm going to hear the noise. I'm going to see all the cars going in and out. There's going to be more cars going in and out because of the resident, because they're coming in and out of shopping, work. They're coming in and out. If we're doing a warehouse, that's 9 to 5. They're coming in and out 9 to 5. I see more of that as an opportunity versus a resident. It doesn't make any sense. I don't understand your logic. It's 1.5 cars per residence. That's about 250 cars for 167 apartments that you're projecting. That's 250 cars in and out 3 or 4 times a day. That's right around my math, simple math, just while you were talking, that's around 1,500 cars going in and out of that one street because there's no second point of access that you're now allowing. Now, it took me 10 minutes just to get out. Imagine 250 more cars trying to get out of Stanton Avenue on the 202. Doesn't make any sense whatsoever. My kids have been hit almost twice. I got 3 kids, 8, 7, and how old are they? And 3. They've been hit almost have been hit twice on Stanton Avenue because it's used as a cut through. I don't know if all my other neighbors who live here, that street, as you know, is cut through because people don't want to go out on 202. They want to go around Matlack, so they don't even stop at the stop sign. I can't imagine put all those cars that you're projecting into my neighborhood. It doesn't make one bit of sense. That's my 2 cents. It's just an opinion, but I'm a neighbor and I have a right to have that opinion.
Thank you. Other people would like to speak?
Good evening, West Goshen Board. My name is John Altshaw. I'm the Township Manager of Westtown Township, and I'm joined by Tom Foster, who's one of our 3 elected supervisors. As Mr. Walsh, Chairman Walsh alluded to, the part of the property is in Westtown, and needless to say, obviously, a number of the residents here are from Westtown, so sort of representing all of them. We haven't talked about it at the board level yet, but certainly, we do have the concerns about traffic generally, and our residents do. And I think Mr. Heelman made a very good point about, comparing reality versus a motel with no vacancy rate. I would ask that, I think Westtown would at a minimum ask that there any future traffic study take into account what the reality is at the motel as far as the vacancy rate. Another concern I think I have, and I think Chad alluded to it as well, is that the kind of dispersion of how traffic will flow from an apartment building compared to a motel. With transient motel residents, they're going to probably just go from Stanton right onto 202. Maybe they're going to turn around at the McDonald's if they're going to go southbound, but it's sort of staying on the 202 side. I would imagine with a apartment residence that traffic would be more dispersed and it would go through Stanton and eventually to Oakbourne, which is a PennDOT road. And then up to Matlack. And so I would ask that, to the extent there are future traffic studies, it reflect that dispersion of how traffic might flow as a result of the different types of residents living there. And finally, I do recognize that if you guys are going to go forward with this, it would require an amendment to your zoning ordinance. I would ask at a minimum you guys consider permitting, if you're going to go this route and amend your zoning ordinance, permitting it by conditional use as opposed to just by right, as I do think in the future our residents would like to have asked for conditions, reasonable conditions to be put on the property, and it'd be also an opportunity for Westtown and West Goshen at the board level to work proactively together. So that's my 10 cents, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, John. Other folks who would like to speak? Yes, sir.
Sorry. My name is Steve Garza. I live at 201 Larchwood Road, and my concern, John touched on about the traffic going through the neighborhood. I've lived there since 1975, and it's quiet. That's why I've never moved. It's nice. Now they talk about a pool putting in there. I mean, from my house, if I was 30, 40 years younger, I could throw a stone and hit the back of the property. And what I see, what's going to happen is they're going to come out of that development, come up Stanton, like that gentleman said, go up Oakbourne, make a left on Larchwood. That's the way out to Matlack Street. And the neighborhood now, we have a younger neighborhood. They have moms with their babies pushing strollers and walking their dogs. Westtown has proposed a park, not a park, but to put some swings and apparatus for children down at the Larchwood Park. So that's a concern because, when the traffic gets backed up, that's what they're going to do. They're going to come around, they're going to go up Larchwood, out to Matlack, get down to 202. And he mentioned storage facilities. I don't know if you're aware, they're building a large storage facility where the Tia de Goth is. So I don't know why we need another storage facility. And the other thing, the other gentleman said, we got the Luxor apartments there on Matlack Street. We got the Spaz Beverage apartments, the Point, and now we're going to have this within a 300-400 yards of those buildings. It's going to have a lot of traffic going through there. We're going to have to make a left turn on Matlack Street coming down south on 202. And that arrow, that light to make a left, is you're going to sit there for 4 or 5 light changes before you can make a left unless they do something with that light. So that's my concern. Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Doug?
Hello, good evening. Doug White, West Goshen Township. I have 2 questions. Will your proposal require a zoning variance for height if you go 4 stories?
As a conditional use, correct. Is that right? Like the answer as a conditional use? It would be
Until the board decides what zoning district it's going to be or what have you, I can't answer your question.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think right now it's allowable for 50 feet. So, also the second question is, the crime problems that are occurring there at the old AAA Inn, is it because it's a motel or is it because of the way it's being run? In other words, if this was redeveloped into another hotel but better run or more upscale or somehow different, would the crime problems go down, and would it sort of remain the same but without the crime, which the current residents would feel better about? Thank you.
Thank you. Other folks who would like to speak?
Yes, ma'am.
Hi. Good evening. I'm Linda Gallon and I live at 949 South Walnut. So if you come up Stanton, you directly hit my home. I'm on South Walnut, and everybody seems to be forgetting that when you take Stanton, you got to make a right turn on South Walnut to even get to Oakbourne. And already now, my 2.5-year-old granddaughter lives with me, and no one, I mean, everybody uses that as a cutoff. Like Chad's my neighbor, he lives catacornered. We put signs out, watch your children if they live here. No one respects the fact that this is a neighborhood full of children, okay? Everybody's in a big hurry. I mean, I've got to grab my grandchild out of the way half the time. And it's not the prime traffic time. I mean, we would never even go out there at prime traffic time. And, you know, we were talking about entrance onto 202. I mean, going south and north. I mean, I understand that, you know, it was already a long time ago said that this was going to be a big hotel. How many years ago was that? And in that amount of time when that property was qualified for this large of a hotel or whatever, how many more units have been built along 202 or in that area to filter traffic through that area? Maybe it was okay, I don't know how many years ago, but it's sure not okay now. I mean, you wouldn't want to live there. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Other speakers? Yes, sir.
Pat McDonough. I live at 7 Oakbourne Road in Westchester. I've lived there for now over 20 years. My sons have grown up and gone to school in Westchester School District. And in the time that I've been here, I've noticed obviously the desirability to live in this township as well as Westtown Township. And because of that desirability, you are seeing an increase of apartment complexes being built, which puts a strain on the school districts and also puts a strain on the infrastructure and the utility lines for each township. Most people have kind of talked about some of the things I was going to bring up, so I won't reiterate things, but one thing is Oakbourne is a PennDOT road, and in the process of restricting or trying to slow the traffic down, PennDOT has added several traffic control devices on Oakbourne. There is, I believe, 3 bus stops on Oakbourne and no sidewalks, which is very, very important because you do have a lot of younger children here who are now school-aged, and there's one particular bus stop that's on, I don't believe the intersection, but People who live at the end of Oakbourne actually have to walk probably about a quarter of a mile to get to that bus stop, which has about, at times, they probably have 20 to 25 kids waiting for the bus. And with adding a residential level of people there, 260 or 167 units, to that point is the transients like stay on 202 and stay on sort of the commercial district of the township. However, if you're a resident and you want to get to work, as I do every day, I'm never going to go on 202. I always go down Oakbourne Road onto Matlack and then on 202. So if you live in that apartment for more than a year, you're immediately not going to get on 202. You're going to get on Oakbourne. And to the point, Westtown Township is trying to they know that there's a lot of younger children in the neighborhood, and it's a very desirable neighborhood. Someone's building an addition on their home on Stanton, putting in about $300,000 on their property. There's another lot that recently sold that someone's going to build a new house on. So the neighborhood is very desirable, and you're getting a lot of younger children. So that's a major concern, is that traffic. And I don't know if anyone's aware, probably in the past 20 years, I believe there's been 2 deaths at that intersection of Stanton and 202. I know there's a motorcyclist who got killed there, and I believe there's still a cross located at that intersection, and I believe a bicyclist was killed there at one point in time. So to add sort of that level of traffic at that intersection is just going to increase the harm or the risk of getting another death there. The other thing I was going to mention was, let's see here, stormwater runoff. If you're going to increase, I know the impervious coverage, they're going to be grandfathered in with that impervious coverage, but a lot of these apartments, as you notice, all have flat roofs. Every single apartment that's built in the last 10 years, it's a flat roof, and they have to somehow take that stormwater runoff and put it somewhere. And most of the time you have to keep it on site. So to keep it on site, you're going to have to build a retention pond, and with that retention pond, you're going to have standing water, and then another hazard for children, mosquitoes, the whole bit. So that's an important thing. And then I noticed in the proposal that they're doing essentially 2 commercial properties, or one residential and then another commercial property with storage unit. You mentioned about not having trucks, but if you're going to have a storage unit, I can guarantee you there's going to be one U-Haul truck driving in that storage unit once a day, because you're going to have people coming in and moving their furniture, and so you're going to get a lot of truck traffic there. But also, I know they want to maximize their profitability on the lot. I know in some developments, Westtown Township has sort of forced developers to provide open space buffers. And because it's so close to the neighborhoods, it would be nice if this does get rezoned and reapproved, for you guys to give us a buffer between the residential and the apartment. And because that building was built in 1971, the current buffer right now is full growth trees and large berms. So if you're coming down Stanton Avenue, sometimes you can't even see the hotel because of the full growth trees and the berms. If we clear that lot and build brand new storage units and apartment complexes, I can guarantee you those trees are gone. So that and those berms are going to be gone. So that buffer between the residential neighborhood and the property is going to be eliminated. One suggestion I would make to the developer would be, if they want to go 3 or 4 stories that you guys may approve, is could they tier it down so that right up against Stanton Avenue is not a 4-story building? Could you do a 1-story building and then maybe tier it up, just to sort of ease the transition from that large of a story building to the local residents? So that's all I have.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would like to make a comment? Yes. Yes, you can.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity. My name is Mary Ty, and I'm 939 South Walnut Street, so I'm right behind. My husband's been there for 38 years. I've been there for 25 years. The traffic data, I'm looking forward to seeing accurate data, because I don't think the hotel had that many tenants in the past 10 years. But that's just my observation, and there is a lot of traffic and trucks, and it's dangerous in the whole neighborhood coming in and out. Also, some good points about the 4 stories. I mean, how is that going to fit into the neighborhood? And also, what kind of tenants? Because we are near a lot of students, too. So, and I think there's also a hotel being proposed for Snyder Avenue. Is that true? So I think part of the problem with the hotel is that there have been a lot of owners over the years, and it has deteriorated over the decades. And finally, the road behind it is a private road with 4 houses. And there's a chain there now, and there's problems with landscaping and everything. So how is that going to be addressed for the residents that live there?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comments? Mr. Tarantino, you said you had a response to a couple of those points?
I can respond to a few of these items. And I'll just go from the most recent. In terms of the existing, there's an emergency access there that's chained off. What we've talked to the residents of your street is that we would be fencing that area further in, and so that would remain, and that fence would have a gate for emergency vehicles that would be locked, and emergency services would have a key to that. But with respect to traffic, and I hear everybody's concern, and the board has expressed some of the same concerns. There's nothing to go back and say, you know, the property obviously has been in decline for a long time, as you've stated, but it hasn't declined enough to not go on as an ongoing concern. The current owner has decreased because we're a contract purchaser, and there's a prospect of redevelopment. Obviously, hasn't invested to continue to expand it or make it better, right? But if some other owner would come in, the current state of the property will not improve the clientele that's going to go through that hotel. It's only going to improve the quantity of people going through that hotel and the use of some of the wedding facilities and everything else that are there. So would it increase to what it was in 1989? Probably not. So let's state that fact. But would it increase significantly? Yes. And so what we tried to measure is, it's difficult because you're looking at it after COVID, and a property owner that is not putting any effort or money into expanding the hotel business. So it's a difficult thing to gauge. So I understand that right now it's underutilized. But when we're looking at this is, if we're not doing this, somebody else is going to come in and expand that hotel and put more money into it. And the same clientele that's going to be there, it's going to be expanded. So you're going to have an increased amount of traffic. What it is, and we can talk about the potential numbers and get more accurate with that through a traffic study. But we tried to do the best to put an improved use, or the best use possible on that property, given the challenges that current use presents. So that's all I have. I don't know if you have anything else, Alex.
You know, other than stating the obvious, that there's a lot of traffic on 202 that goes past the access. I mean, a lot of that is regional traffic. I grew up behind Longwood Gardens. I used to sled down the road that I grew up on, and I wouldn't dare step foot out on it now because everything's been built up. So certainly in my 53 years, the traffic everywhere around here has definitely changed. You know, from a process standpoint, whether it's Sam or another developer or another traffic engineer, I mean, whatever does go forward with the site, we have to look at the safety, perform a traffic study. We have to go to PennDOT and address all of the things that are obvious. I mean, it's clear, I mean, you know, I can't stand here and say in straight face there's no traffic on 202. So, that's all I can say. You know, I do think the developer has gone through a lot of effort to try to come up with something that is least impactful. And also to reiterate what the chairman said at the beginning, this is a discussion at this point and there is no application. And certainly greatly appreciate all the insights and input regarding these things. I mean, I sat out and watched traffic. It took me at least 2 minutes to turn out on the 202. I forget. I'm just saying, it took me, it was about 4:15, 4:30 or so. So, you know, I hope that from our testimony that, you know, we're not, I mean, it's obvious. So, we hear that, and once the project goes, you know, whatever goes forward, we obviously have to go through the studies and the approval processes and everything that is required on that. But I'm not sure if I made any kind of a point, but I'm going to end there. If anyone has any other questions.
Thank you.
I have one more question, please.
If you don't mind, yes, come on.
Yeah, I can speak to me. I just want to speak to that gentleman there. Is the apartments you say are residential, would they be able to apply for Section 8 housing there also?
No, that will not be the case. These would be market rate apartments, not student housing or Section 8 housing. It would be very similar to the surrounding apartment buildings in there.
Yes, sir? Yeah. Back there in the red.
You're saying that
Would you mind coming up and stating your name and where you live, please?
My name's Joe Ty. I live on 933 South Walnut Street, which is directly behind the motel. Matter of fact, when it rains right now, the water runs down the hill, across my property, tears up every time. But you just sat here and said that a motel would have the same amount of traffic as an apartment complex, which I can't agree with that, because you're going to have 4 or 5 people living in an apartment or whatever, or even a couple, that are right there, there's 2 people driving down the road for each apartment. Okay? And plus, I can't even get out of my neighborhood, where he just said it took him 2 minutes to turn the corner. I don't know what, he must have been at 4 o'clock in the morning when I go to the gym. That's when I take time to get out of the neighborhood. I go all the way out that street, all the way down to get onto the hotel. So I don't, the traffic's just not going to get it. And I think a motel, if it went back in there, if somebody ran the motel properly, like it was back when it was built, I've been here my whole life, I'm 66 years old. Used to be called the Westchester Inn, the Treadway Inn and all that, it was ran properly back then. I mean, right now, it is a dump. But, you know, that's the way it is. You can't put apartments there. No way.
Thank you. Are there other public comments? I did see someone else with their hand up who hasn't spoken. Yes, sir. Would you mind saying your name again, please?
Sorry. Steve Drummond, I live on the other side of town. I don't think there's any win-win here with the traffic problem. It's not going to go away. According to the zoning you have now, you could put a warehouse up there. You wouldn't have to come here and go through all this, correct? The township just dodged a bullet over on Beaumont Street with an Amazon warehouse. It was going to put several thousand cars, vans a day on that street and into township roads. And all I'm just suggesting is that the residents look at what you might be able to work with in the developer as opposed to what you might get. I mean, I don't think there's any win-win with this traffic issue. It's a depend on us. That's my understanding.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just add, in terms of just a clarification to this gentleman, I'm sorry, I forget your name. What is your name? Joey. In terms of the type of apartments, it would be 80 apartments would be 1 bedroom. Okay, so that in terms of the apartments, 37 would be studios, and only 51 apartments would be 2 bedrooms. So that's a reduced amount, and there won't be any 3-bedroom units. And that's what I can tell you about
Has anybody in here ever tried to go down Matlack Street past the old Spanish beverage at 4 o'clock in the afternoon to get down to 202, or to go straight across that highway where you can't go because everybody's blocking the road because they want to make a left on the 202? That's going to be the same thing coming right down here. That's time people go to work, time people come home from work. It'll be the same thing. You can't even get down Matlack Street right now.
Okay, thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So when you said it's only 1 bedroom, it's still, that's fine, but you could have a couple. So that still it will be 2 cars per, you know, so like, how does that make sense? You know, like, even if it's still 1 bedroom, you still have two cars. The traffic is like ridiculous. I fight it. We all fight it every single day. It's just, it's not safe. It's just not a good idea. So many little kids are in that neighborhood. They constantly are riding bikes, walking, people walking dogs. We don't need the extra people. Like, we just don't.
Okay, would you mind just stating your name because we have to?
My name's Megan Lockwood and I live at 11 Corn Road.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Is there any final comment from the public? So to end the process tonight, as I said earlier, there's no action plan tonight. The board's taking all this information into consideration, and we'll come back to a future meeting and have a board deliberation around the way forward on this particular redevelopment idea. Is there any final board questions or comments or thoughts you want to share?
Thank you for your comments. That's what we're here to do. We're here to listen to you. We are here to represent everyone in the township. I just had a question. Is anyone here that's being affected negatively by the Quality Inn at the moment? Is anyone in the audience right now? Yeah, no, I'm referring to mostly the crime, like the chief alluded to.
I don't know if crime was over there. I live right there.
I've never seen 4 police cars in my neighborhood. Never. And I live right behind it. I can see the lights. I've never seen it. I hear you, but I don't see it.
That was the scandal.
That's what I never saw.
That was the what? I'm sorry.
Standoff.
Oh, yeah.
We shut down the neighborhood. But I would like to know what similar hotel properties or similar apartment complexes, what type of police activities occur with those as well. It's a hotel, you're always going to have police activity. It's a domestic abuse or some sort of ruckus in the hallways. You know, I would like to see what violent crime or large crime.
So that's the chief. I mean, in terms of the point that's been there a couple of years now, is there much police activity or calls relative to the number of people who live there, relative to any other neighborhoods in the township?
For last year, we were there, I think, 50 or 55.
And the number of residents there is?
Yeah.
Do we have the number of residents at the point? Can we know that? Thank you.
If I may answer Ashley's question, the negative things, you get good people and bad people, but the owner is not taking care of the property. There are a bunch of old locust trees that are falling on the electric wires and blocking the road, and he doesn't have money, so he'll cut them and leave them on the side of the road.
Yeah, so we have had the opportunity in the past to meet with the owner of the property, and we brought up a lot of these issues. Speaking for myself, I didn't really feel like we were getting anywhere with the owner of the property. He put the property up for sale, so that's where we are now. That's why I asked the question about by right uses. That's the reason that this developer is able to come to us, because we would have to change the zoning to allow apartments. My only question here, sitting up here, is I listened to what you guys had to say tonight, and I've listened to some of the residents that live on that street that are afraid because of the crime that they do experience. I mean, I'm glad that you aren't seeing it where you live, but there are people that aren't experiencing it. And I also wonder, is there going to be somebody tomorrow that decides to build a huge retail center, and we don't have anything to say about it, really. They can just come in and do it, and I wonder then, what sort of controls we're going to have about the traffic issue then. I mean, that's where I'm coming from. That's what I'm thinking. So it was really important for me to get your feedback. And I hear you 100%. I think the last reference to Zoom meeting that we had, the last time we talked about this, at that point, I think it was a 290
or so apartments that were being proposed, and I said, absolutely no way. I mean, that was an insane amount of apartments. I'm with you. I drive through Exton all the time, and I see what's happened there. I was very against the Luxor being built, and that was before I was on the board, and I came to this meeting, and I said that's a mistake. The last thing that I want to see is our township sort of being overbuilt like this. The only place that I'm coming from is I see the crime there, and it worries me for the people that do live there. And so, you know, this is something that we are going to have to think about.
Do you have that much crime if the hotel wasn't so bad? Like if you got a better hotel in there where it costs more money to go in?
I would,
like,
speaking for myself,
you know,
I would love for someone to come along and say, hey, guess what? We're gonna buy this, and we're gonna turn it into a really great hotel.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna increase the
because
traffic.
there's no other hotels.
And that problem's gonna go. I totally agree with you. I'm not seeing that. We've actually been proactive about this, reaching out to other people to say, can you buy this property? We've reached out to Penn Medicine because, you know, if we feel like if they moved in there, it wouldn't cause traffic, but it would redevelop that property so that all the people that live next to it will no longer have these problems with people literally like wandering onto their properties. So we've been trying to be proactive about saying, can we get someone in there to rehab it? And it's not economically feasible for them to do it. I agree with you. I think that would be
if it was
great.
a better quality place to stay,
Absolutely.
you wouldn't have all these crimes, I don't think.
I agree.
Because of the people, though it brings the lower class people in to do whatever they're doing.
100% right.
What are you looking to put in there? I mean, something is going to be there.
So medical buildings, I think, would be good because then it could by 5, 6 o'clock, they shut down, they're done. Weekends, fine, a Saturday here and there, Sundays they're done. Like, it just wouldn't be as much traffic as an actual, you know, like that's like, we're being hit.
Except for they're not interested.
Yeah,
Penn's not interested.
I fight so hard to get out of Stanton right there, and like, I don't know who said it. It's like 5, 6 cars of pile-ups, from us neighbors, you know, and then to add on that to get out there is like, it's a nightmare.
And it has never taken me 2 minutes to get out
Never.
of the street. Ever.
Never. It's longer than
So-
that. But I would love both of you. I invite you to come hang out for the whole day, and you can just keep circling around up and down 202, and you can figure it out for yourself, because you'll find out real quickly it's not that easy.
I hear what you're all saying, I really respect it and appreciate it. My concern is somebody else is going to come in you don't have control of to build on that property. So, you know, that's why I'm saying, what do you want there? Medical is out because there's no interest for
We
it.
don't want 167 more people times 2.
Right. Because it's going to be something.
But would you want
at some point.
retail?
Would you want retail?
Not
I'm just
retail.
asking you, what are your needs?
How about
That's what we're here for.
15 luxury homes?
Right,
Yeah.
about something
What
like
about
that.
I'm sorry, 15.
$15 million homes?
Single home.
Single homes.
Single home.
Single home sounds good, but the problem is the person who owns the property paid a lot of money for it to operate as a hotel, and its economic value, the way it's so now, is obviously much more than.
Value's going down.
Well, everybody lost money in the stock market.
So he goes bankrupt, and then we have a derelict hotel there that someone's going to come in for
Well,
a steal.
He lives in Connecticut. We live here. The owner lives in Connecticut.
I can say one more thing. I living on Stanton. I'll come up to the mic. Again, Chad Weldon here. Actually, I know every one of my state neighbors. I know everybody on that street. I walk them down, I talk to them all. There's not one person there that's fearful of the crime that's happening at the hotel. It happens there, it stays there. I personally, speaking for my neighbors, I'd rather have retail. It's 9 to 5. They're not going to be, what the problem is that we're all trying to voice to the board right now is that when you bring residents in there, they're there 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. In a retail, they're there from 9 to 5. They leave. Think about it. The most traffic on 202 is right around, 7 a.m. to 9 a.m.? That retail is not going to be open at that point. They're going to open at 9 o'clock. By that time, all that traffic is going to go through. That's our problem. That's what we're trying to voice to you.
So you're looking at those numbers where it said retail would increase, and you're saying, yeah, it wouldn't.
I look at every other strip mall in here, and I don't see those numbers. I just don't. I mean, again, I can see what he's saying, but I also try to pull the police into the township, into my neighborhood, and say that people are speeding down the roads, and they say no, that it's not happening. I see it. Neighbors, we see it. We see it happening. So I'm not sure why us as neighbors, we're the ones who are the voice of this neighborhood. We see everything 24 hours a day. And we're just telling you, I'd rather have retail, and I'm not sure if I'm speaking for the rest of my neighbors, but I'd rather have retail than residential.
And if it was retail, the people who are going there, won't really go through Oakbourne, all the little back roads that us neighbors know and go through. Whereas, like, if it was apartments complex, they'd eventually figure out, okay, then we're going to cut through all these little ways. Whereas retail, they would just 202, get what they would need to get, back on 202 to be done.
So you're saying, I don't want to say your, because I'll speak to you.
Okay.
You're saying you would rather either see a warehouse, retail, medical storage, or wholesale, or there may be a couple other things that
Sure, yes, something that's open from 9 to 5, or, you know, a certain time, and then it's done, and then not just people constantly coming in, and then their friends coming in, and then that's adding more and more and more. It's just...
Do I have an opportunity to ask or just...
If you could keep it brief, we've
I-
got to go around the same topic over and over, so I'd like
and I
to
understand.
say wrap it up, please.
No, I understand. So just for the benefit of the retail, if you create a retail space, you can create several spaces. So within the retail, you could have a gym that leases part of the retail that opens at 5:30 in the morning and stays open till 11 o'clock at night. When you have retail, you can have uses that are not 9 to 5. Medical office is a more standard block of time. However, you do generate a lot more trips during the day from an office. But again, I'm just saying this from a food for thought from everybody. Warehousing, while it sounds great, warehousing requires access for larger vehicles, which I think we all can agree around here is the ability to maneuver large vehicles in and out would be exceedingly difficult from this site. So I'm just trying to help your conversation as to what would you like to see. There are nuances in each of these things, and just because something says retail, it's not necessarily a 9 to 5 operation. I'm just saying that.
Right. But, you know, you are going to have trucks moving in constantly in and out of people who only are staying a year or so in the apartment. They're just it's going to be going like that. And is it going to have also, it's going to be apartment complex and also storage?
The self-storage.
You're going to have trucks, regardless. So, like...
You're going to have trucks, but you're not going to have articulated tractor trailers.
Okay, but you're going to have 20-foot U-Haul trucks.
You could have 20-foot U-Haul trucks.
And then
Again,
you're
I'm
also
just
going to
having
have
to.
people moving in and out of the apartment.
I'm just saying that each option that could be viable on the site has its pros and cons, and there are things to consider.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. And we appreciate everybody coming and sharing your thoughts with the board. It's important for us to hear from you so that we can think it through and then have a conversation at a subsequent meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Will residents be notified of the next board meeting about this?
Well, we probably won't do it via letter. So this board meets twice a month, the first and third Tuesday at 6 p.m. We post our agenda materials in terms of what's on the agenda, the materials for the meeting on the Friday before that Tuesday. So if you wouldn't mind, just check the website for the next. Probably, if not the next meeting in the April 19th, but the first meeting in May is where we'll revisit this.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We'll just take a little break. People are leaving. Thank you. Yeah, well, you just got it when you were stuck. Is going all right? So how are you going to tell everyone me to raise the taxes?
Well, so I think we would have to.
We can reconvene, please. We're missing two of the boards, so.
Actually, I think some of the retail on 202 is self-limiting. When you think about that CVS at 202 and Street Road.
Yeah.
Here today, I've never going to I'll never go. And then in East Bradford Township, where they have the Acme on 322 west of town, that whole shopping center just died. The access is there.
Okay, so we're on to agenda item number 5, which is a final lot line change plan for number 2 and number 4 Greenbank Avenue. And I believe, Rick, you're going to introduce this to the board.
Yeah, this is a pretty simple lot line change with an exchange of property between the two adjoining property owners. We do have the engineer here, Nick Vistardis. If you had any questions regarding that or anything you wanted to present.
This is not Nick.
That's not Nick. I'm sorry. Never mind. My bad.
Rick, I don't think we have anybody from that project.
Yeah, well, the owners are here, the property owners are here. So that's fine. So basically, it's just a transfer of property between the two owners, and there's really no issues with stormwater. There's no improvements to the properties. That's all it is.
There's no non-conformance introduced by the
No.
change?
No.
Meets all the requirements for
Totally
individual
conforming
lots?
area involved. Yep.
Any questions from the board?
Well, at the planning commission, there was, some discussion about this, of course, as part of the process from your application. There was some concern raised about establishing an easement to be able to have access to the stone wall. Are you guys going to handle that between the two of you?
We're just going to deal with it ourselves.
That was addressed at the planning commission meeting. The stone wall is a very small stone wall. There's no intent to really do anything with it. So there's really no need for.
So you guys are good with it then?
Absolutely.
Was that the setback issue?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There's no need for setbacks.
Are there any other questions from the board about this proposal?
I'll make a motion, we approve.
Thank you, Joe. Is there a second to approve the lot line change for number 2 and number 4 Greenbank Avenue?
I'll second.
Thank you, Robin. Any final board comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Okay, ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, next on the agenda is number 6, a presentation and continued discussion regarding proposed improvements to the intersection of Rosedale Avenue and New Street. So just as background on this one, this is a continued discussion regarding the proposed improvements to the intersection of Rosedale Avenue and New Street in the township. This subject was previously discussed at the March 15th meeting, where a proposal from Carroll Engineering and amendments to the 2016 cooperation memorandum were reviewed. And after the discussion, the board determined it would be beneficial to have the design engineer from Carroll Engineering present the proposed plan, which we're doing this evening, to allow for the board to critique and maybe make any suggested changes, and also an opportunity for the public to comment on the design. So, are you Mr. Graham?
Yes, sir.
All right.
I think so.
Welcome. You got it right.
Is this control?
No.
No. Yeah.
No, maybe it does. It does. Not supposed to.
That's two strikes, Rick. You've only got one left.
It's not actually supposed to, but I guess it does.
Good evening, board, Chris, public. My name is Jamie Graham. I work at Carroll Engineering. I've been an engineer for 22 years, and I've been working on this intersection for almost a quarter of my career. I started on it back in 2018. We were looking at different options for this for this intersection. We looked at a roundabout. We looked at signal improvements, and we've landed on kind of a mishmash of improvements. This is New Street. To the north is to the left. This is Rosedale. As you can see, the gray on this plan shows the existing footprint. New Street on both approaches has one lane in each direction. Rosedale on the eastern approach for traffic heading west up here. Back in 2018 when I started, it was one lane in each direction. Now they're on on westbound, there's due to the striping project on Rosedale a couple of years ago, there's a center turn lane added, and then at this intersection there was a dedicated left turn lane added. And then on the other side, down towards, on the borough side, there's only one lane in each direction for Rosedale. This project, the purpose of this project, we're looking to address capacity issues, safety issues, pedestrian issues. The university is up on this side over here. This is a parking lot and a basketball court. On this side is the Schmidt Hall. There's many pedestrians here, and that's what has driven the design of this project. We're in the preliminary phase, moving into the final design. I should do this. If you guys can see it, I'm just going to kind of go over what improvements we're looking at. I'll start on this side for New Street. Like I mentioned, in its current configuration, there's one lane in each direction. What we're proposing right now is to add a dedicated left turn lane for vehicles heading northbound on New Street, going westbound onto Rosedale, shifting the through traffic over. We're going to taper them out and shift them over to line them up. And then the shoulder over here is widened a fair amount. And the plan is to add gore striping in there. And then you can see on this side, that's not working. On the other side in the northeast quadrant, right across from where the gore striping is, this is kind of an important piece of it. It's a pork chop island that we're proposing to add in, and then having a channelized slip right turn lane for the vehicles coming westbound on Rosedale to head up on New Street. That pork chop island does a couple things. It helps address capacity in the operation of the signal because it gets those right turn vehicles flowing freely and out of the signal time. It also, the pork chop island provides a pedestrian refuge for pedestrians, for the students coming across that channelized right turn lane, and then to get across Rosedale and then onto New Street. As far as the signal timing goes, when we look at a signal, we have to look at giving green time to all the different approaches, and we also have to give green time to the pedestrians. If we can get the pedestrians on the pork chop island, that reduces the distance that they have to cross on Rosedale. Instead of crossing the 3 lanes coming westbound and then the 1 lane going eastbound, they only have to cross 1 lane in each direction, and that's less time that we have to give in that signal cycle to the pedestrians, and that can help with the traffic flow at the intersection.
I just have a quick question about the pork chop island then. So is there going to be a yield sign as you turn
Yes,
right?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay, so it's going to be a yield sign, and then there's going to be an actual pedestrian crosswalk.
There's going to be a crosswalk right here, yep. And then this is it's hard to see, that's a yield sign, and then that's some yield arrows.
So I guess my question is, how does it work when somebody's traveling, I guess, what is that, west on Rosedale, and making that right turn onto New Street, if there's a crosswalk? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm just worried about pedestrian safety.
They'll have to yield to the pedestrians, and we'll make sure to provide advanced signage.
Is that a standard design for a crosswalk with a yield?
Yep. Okay. Yes. And we'll have the yield sign. We'll have like the diamond pedestrian sign with the arrow pointing down, just kind of alerting everybody that this is where the pedestrians are crossing.
Will there be any flashing lights there where the pedestrians are crossing?
It's a possibility. There's already, you don't typically do the flashing lights when there's already a traffic signal, but we will have audible and visible pedestrian signals for the pedestrians as well.
So they can cross them.
I watched this meeting last week, and I know that one of the public had mentioned that the students walking around with their cell phones in front of their face, and I drove it before I came here. They're all just looking down and not even paying attention.
Flashing lights would be nice, because if it's a green light, you're probably not going to slow down, coming down that road if it's a traffic green light.
I mean, that's true. So it's students, and I used to be one, so I'm not like casting shade on students, but they do drive a lot, and then also they are on their phones all the time. And yeah, that was brought up at the last meeting about how we actually, I guess, tried to reduce at one point the number of crosswalks sort of crossing Rosedale because of the traffic issue. So I guess I just wanted to make sure that if we're introducing a crosswalk from that sidewalk onto that porta shop island, and then another one for them to, I guess, get onto the opposite corner.
Yep. Yes.
If it's not going to create more of a backup here on New Street, coming from the south, or on Rosedale coming. I mean, that's my.
And that's something we're really going to start looking into in final design when we get PennDOT involved and we start retiming this and analyzing this with the traffic signal models. And I mean, this signal has to go through PennDOT, so we have to. I can't tell you what the level of service is for this intersection at the moment, but we can't. That there's certain like delay values that PennDOT won't let us go. Like if this design adds 15 seconds of delay to the intersection, then the PennDOT won't permit it. So we have to go through that process, that iterative process with PennDOT to make sure that it all works.
I have a question for you. In Westchester Borough, I believe it's a Gay and High Street. As part of the traffic control, they have a pedestrian-only crossing, period. So in other words, vehicles cannot travel in any direction, but only pedestrians can cross over. Have you considered that as part of this design here as well, especially given the volume of students, pedestrian traffic that's going to be crossing this intersection?
At this point, no, but we're going to be doing a detailed pedestrian study and get a final design for PennDOT. Just like I mentioned with the signal cycle, there's only a certain amount of time that you have for the signal to go through the progressions of all the different approaches. So if you give time dedicated to the pedestrians only, everybody else is sitting. And but then it's
everything's a give and take.
It's the give and take. It's the give and take. So
you have to come up with the best balance. Given your process you're going through at this time, will there be further opportunities for the board and also residents within the community directly impacted, particularly those living along New Street there, to be able to give you some input?
I believe that up to Chris. Do you think there will be more opportunities for public meetings?
I believe so. The agreement that was presented to the board at the last meeting was specific to the design phase of the project. So as we work through the design phase of the project, we can certainly bring back updated designs to the board for a review at a public meeting. I think that would be appropriate.
Johnny, I mean, the intention was to allow public comment tonight on this preliminary part of the design, which is the best time to get public comments in. If we wait much longer, you're going to be further into the detailed reviews. It's going to get harder and harder to change anything. Do you have a suggestion around? Do you want to notify the neighborhood or something about this next review? Do you have a suggestion on that?
Well, I let you know that at a prior meeting, there was folks from New Street who came and expressed some opinions about it, and I don't see them here tonight. But I'm just asking, would there be any future opportunities for further input?
I think, like Chris said, if we're going to do a final review to get a little further along, will that be post or pre-PennDOT kind of sign off on it? This next phase. So you said there's a little bit more work to do, right? You're going to engage with PennDOT around the design, and then there'll be a final design. Is it too late to have a public comment at that point where you've kind of got the blessing of PennDOT for the final design and whatever they say is too late, or how do we get more input, to John's point? Do we have another meeting in a month? Is that okay if we do some notifications to residents who might be most impacted?
I think for my benefit and for the township's benefit, I think doing something earlier than later would be better. just get some input, and if people look at this and say, that maybe there's something we're not thinking about, we can get that into the design at this point when, once we start going through the process with PennDOT, it kind of gets locked in.
What are you targeting to start that process with PennDOT with? Is what we need to get last?
I'm unsure at the moment because there's still the working out of the plan between the university and you guys.
So we have to get that signed off first. Yeah.
One of the major issues with this project, well, it's not really an issue, but one of the major factors in this project is the working with the university plus the multi-jurisdictions with Westchester Borough as well.
Yeah. So that's we left that with this list that Kristen was trying to see if the borough and the university were ready to sign off on it. Is there any update on that?
No, Mr. Chairman, we're still waiting. We're specifically still waiting for comments back, to the best of my knowledge, from the university, from not so much from local council, but from Harrisburg.
Would it be advantageous to get the public comment by maybe sending a letter out to certain surrounding people and say if they want to comment via email or something, because a lot of people may not be able to come.
We need to find a way to publicize this because it's not just like immediate neighbors like it was with the Quality Inn. There's a lot of people who use this intersection, including our township manager, I believe. So, so I would rather find a way to try to promote it, but there's only certain things we do because to send out a mailing is.
Or how about in the newsletter?
We could highlight it in the newsletter.
And say, does anybody have any comments, please email whoever.
Yeah, we can put the word out too.
Yeah.
But it's just something to know if there would be another opportunity to do so.
Yeah, I agree. That's why I'm looking at other ways that avenue can be,
Well, I would be happy to say if we need to have another agenda item to specifically approve the cooperation agreement, that we'll do one more final review of it at that point, assuming there's not much more to change from this point forward, and try to promote that event is kind of the next opportunity. What else can we do, right?
and publicize it as much as we can and have comments in.
And I know that Jamie and Carroll Engineering are, actively working on the design process, but I don't think that, I think you're going to want to wait to finalize things until after the university has agreed to the update to the memorandum of understanding.
Until we get the word from you or the university.
Well, actually, I do have one design question. So as I look at this, if you're traveling south on New Street, coming up to that intersection, you've got now, the new design has 3 lanes proposed, a left turn, straight through, and a right turn lane. They look very narrow in terms of lanes width. If you're in a truck trying to turn right onto Rosedale to go west on Rosedale, are you going to be able to make that turn? So that looks tight to me.
Go right onto.
You're coming south on New Street.
South on New
You've
Street.
got 3 lanes now, all of which look relatively narrow. If you're a truck and you pull into that right turn lane, and now you've got to make that sharp right turn onto west on Rosedale.
Those lanes aren't narrow. They're 11, 12, and 13 feet.
Well, it's 13 feet.
You're talking about going down this way?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
We were instructed and through all the discussions to not impact the church side or the residents on the other side. So we only focused on making the opposing 2 curb returns navigable by the big trucks.
Okay. So it's no worse than it is today, is what you're saying, Rick?
It's going to be a huge improvement over what it is.
No, that right turn, though, is not improved, is it? That right turn on South and you want to West Rosedale?
I'd say it probably is.
Our intentions are not to touch that curb line or the one across the street in front of that.
It's the same as it is today. All right, thank you. Any other questions from the board on the design? So are there any public questions or comments? Mr. Cantwell, you were here and had some comments last time. You got the information you were looking for, I presume, now?
No, this is great, thank you. Jeff Cantwell, East Bradford. I live, you were here last meeting. Thank you. I live at the western end of Rosedale Avenue.
Okay.
A few questions. The pork shop. Are you assuming that the students will actually stop there? I don't mean to be funny. I don't think they will. It sounds like you thought that would be a refuge that they would stop and then wait to continue on. I think it's safer to assume that they won't, because they don't anywhere else.
This is the appropriate design for the intersection to help relieve that issue, but no, I don't think they're going to stop.
Okay, in other words, your design, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, your design assumes that they'll stop at the pork chop?
Yes.
Okay.
Because there's going to be a pedestrian signal, a visible pedestrian signal at the pork chop and then across the street that will alert them when they can go.
Oh, so they'll actually be timed?
They'll be timed.
Oh, that's awesome.
That'll be built into the signal.
That's awesome, okay. And then eastbound on Rosedale, I'm a little disoriented by your drawing, even though it's excellent. That corner, I guess that would be the southwest corner, has poor sight lines. Will any students be crossing there? Do you know?
There aren't pedestrian movements. They're disallowed at this point.
Okay.
So there shouldn't be any movements there as well.
Okay, everything else I think has great sight lines, but I don't see that as an issue. I was talking to John Villalella at the foundation yesterday. Yeah, at the foundation actually, the guy that signs the checks. And they would dream of synchronizing all the signals and timing the students to cross. But COVID has kept them quite a bit in the red, relatively so. In an ideal world, they would contact you and say, let's get all the signals coordinated. So that's in their heart, but not in their pocketbook.
Right.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Just before we leave this, I don't anticipate there being much suggestions made on the part of residents, because this is going to be a drastic improvement to what we have now, because the traffic just backs up going north on New Street for for quite a distance. But I just want to clarify, will we have another opportunity, another shot at this? Is that something we're going to have a chance to take another look at?
Well, we just agreed that we would publicize the opportunity when we review this. When the memo comes up for our approval, which we have to do, we'll have one more review of the actual
One more
design.
review, and then before it becomes finalized, go out to bid.
Well, according to Mr. Graham, once we've approved the cooperation agreement, he's kind of ready to move ahead with working with PennDOT, and really at that point, we'd like it to be, we're ready to go.
That's what I'm saying, is there going to be an opportunity somewhere before that happens to have any further public input?
What we can do is we can publicize the information in the newsletter, advise that the packet of materials is available on the Township website for the April 5th board meeting. And I would say, and we can have them send me emails directly, and I can filter those to the board.
That'd be fine.
Can I suggest that you focus on the Roslyn neighborhood as well? On social media, they've been very vocal about this issue.
Well, we can't, through our newsletter, we can't focus
Yeah.
directly on one
Everybody
neighborhood.
will get it.
But anyone who's signed up for our system can receive the e-newsletter.
Okay.
Then they go out the third Friday of every month.
Sounds good timing.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Just a suggestion, I don't know whether you've contacted Calvary Lutheran, they own the property on the corner. I used to be president there at one time. And one of the things that upset us at the time was the traffic signal got put right in front of that corner, so it blocked the sign. I don't know if you've contacted them to maybe negotiate, maybe getting a little frontage there. Your right turn question is, I think, right on par, because you can't make a right turn there very easily with any more than a car. I know that was our big concern, and that got stuck, and we never got notified of it. This is a long time ago, of course. And the other thing is the line of sight on the south side of Rosedale. There's that hill there. I mean, is the property owner been contacted to maybe give up 10 or 15 feet, or is that off the charts? I'll leave the game, I just asked.
I think it's maybe a good idea we can contact the church at least and let them know this design is in progress. I'm sure hopefully they know, but maybe they're not aware of it, and allow them at least to consider what's going on. So, okay. Any other comments or questions? Well, thank you very much, Jamie. We appreciate the time tonight. And sorry you've been working so long on this. Hopefully we will get it built in the next 18 months.
Before he retires.
I'm not going to retire.
He goes to Costa Rica.
Okay, ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is number 7, discussion regarding the Tyler Citizen Transparency Portal available on the West Goshen Township website. So I'd like to introduce this topic. The township has for several years paid for a third-party hosted piece of software that provides web-based public access to a database of various statements and reports related to the township's fiscal activities. The 2022 renewal fee is $14,926. However, because of functionality issues with the software, when the vendor moved to a new version in 2021, the database has actually been unavailable since July of last year. Therefore, the vendor is offering a one-time credit to reflect that period of no access. I asked Christine Riffey, our finance director, she's just come into the room, to prepare for the board a memo on the history of this product, its usage, and whether it was meeting the original intended value. Christine has provided the board with a memo as part of the publicly available materials for this meeting. After reviewing the situation with Christine and others, I personally do not believe that we should continue purchasing this product for four main reasons. Firstly, that all the financial information that is in this database is already provided to the public through our routine reporting processes, namely the monthly treasurer's report and the semi-monthly listing of all bills paid by the township to vendors and all reimbursements to staff and others. The budget setting and review process with many months of public discussions of both the capital and operating budgets at the detailed line item level, and a professional third-party audit performed on the township accounts, pension plans, and sewer authority finances. Secondly, the usage by the township residents appears minimal. During the 9 months the product has not been available, there's only been one resident asking when the service is expected to resume. So to reinforce the point, this is not about transparency of information, as all the data is available, as I just stated, through other reporting. This is simply a software tool intended to make reviewing financial data easier. My third point is managing the software has become an unnecessary burden on Christine, as she's had to manage the back and forth with the provider on resolving the issues with the new version, and it has become a waste of her valuable time. Fourth, this is just a nice-to-have tool. It's not required by any regulation or code. Surrounding municipalities do not appear to utilize anything similar. We have many other demands for funding, and the poor performance of the vendor, very low public utilization, in my opinion, do not warrant continuing with this expense. So, board, that's where I stand. What are your thoughts?
Look at me for
Well, anyone.
I agree, Sean. I think it's a waste of time for our staff too, which is huge. They could be working on other things, and that's what I mainly look at is Christine's time and everybody else's time on that, and that's valuable time.
So did we ever find out, Christine, if other municipalities are using this kind of portal?
So that's something I can definitely research. You know, I just did a quick search, when I had an inquiry from the board the other day, and I did not see anything on the forefront of, any of our neighboring municipalities. Now, I didn't spend a lot of time looking, and I didn't, reach out directly to their finance department to see, but there wasn't anything, standing at the forefront of their finance department page on their website. So my quick assumption is no, but that's something that I can investigate further, if the board would like, with some of our neighbors.
So 14,926 for the 2022 renewal, even though we got that rebate.
It would end up being about 7,000 something, whatever number I had in there, less the credit. Yeah.
But moving into next year, should we choose to stay with it, it'll probably be over 15,000.
Yes. Mm-hmm. We've been seeing about a 3% increase, so I would expect to see a 3% increase on top of the 2022 total. They're not going to give our credit consideration in 2023. So.
My concern, if they can't fix a software problem in 6 months,
9 months.
9 months, something's wrong with the company, and I don't want to invest $15,000 next year in a company that can't even produce.
Yeah, I know part of the problem is, a lot of different, public organizations utilize the same software program. So there's a lot more capabilities in there and options than maybe what we need. So it's a process to go through and sort of sort out, this is what's available, but this is how we want ours narrowed down. So that's sort of a lot of the back and forth. So.
There's other resources you use that are just as good versus this system.
We don't use This is solely public use, really.
Yeah.
I thought you used it a little bit.
We don't.
Okay.
Honestly, the only time, because staff is not involved with it at all. Tyler Technologies strictly maintains control of that platform. They pull the information directly from our software and publish it directly on our website. There's no township involvement there.
Okay.
So there's no, we use our financial software, so there's no reason for us to really go in there, other than, if we were to get an inquiry, we kind of have to tie back to what those requests were, because the portal is generally updated on a once-a-week basis, but our software keeps moving forward. We're still working, so, if we're trying to back into a question that was asked, staff may use the portal then, but generally, we're not using it outside of that.
It's convenient for residents to be able to go in and find
Yeah,
what they're looking for.
it's a digital database versus paper reports.
Well, can you explain a little bit more of exactly what product we're talking, what exactly does it provide to a resident that they couldn't get otherwise?
It's the same information that they can get otherwise. It's just the pass portal is multiple years. The portal is a digital version that allows you to view more years at one time versus flipping through the monthly reports. It's basically the difference there.
So basically it gives you that financial information all at one time, in one delivery, so to speak, rather than having...
It sounds like it summarizes it by years and one viewpoint, whereas now you have to go into each month per year to view the data.
Right. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to access the information, basically.
Yeah, I mean...
What service it provides.
Mm-hmm.
So this was started, back in 2016, I believe, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. And what was the thinking of the board back then? I wasn't sitting in that board. I don't know if anybody here was.
I was not either yet.
Well, it was a new product that was being offered by our financial software at the time, and at the time, the board and the staff really thought that it would be a great tool, for the public to have access to and sort of cut down on the volume of questions that we were getting, because the information was a little more easily accessible. I think was sort of the driving factor in the beginning.
Well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, Christine, but it was just a few handful of individuals who were creating multiple requests for information at that time, that you felt this might help you not have to be spending so much time directly answering their questions by providing this. That
was the hope, that the information would be there instead of,
Do you think that's going to happen again?
Well, I mean, did you find that to happen, that to be the case?
Maybe to an extent, but I think then it's sort of just, we get just different questions, I think. I don't think that it really changed anything for the volume. I think we're still answering questions. It's maybe...
Well, now you get questions about why is the data in the table different than the data in this report, this event, right? You get a different set of questions because it's two sets of information.
It's not matching. Well, also, if we decide not to renew this, we could go back in 2 years.
That's my point. Yeah, exactly.
That is not
exactly.
We'll bring it back.
Always bring it back.
Yeah, I mean, we would have that sort of initial startup again. Part of the problem is when we first set up the service, we spent a lot of time going through fund by fund, account by account, category by category, grouping things the way that they should be grouped. And when Tyler Technologies came out with the new portal and everything was supposed to be migrated over, our settings from the old portal were supposed to save and carry over to the new portal, and it was supposed to be set up exactly like we had before, and that for whatever reason didn't happen. So now we're sort of still in the process of going back and doing that regrouping process that we did in the very beginning. So yes, we absolutely could, if the board decided they wanted to bring it back, that's absolutely an option. Just be aware of the fact that we would still have to go through that process of, rehashing how things should be organized and presented. So
Christine, if we did not renew it, would we still get a credit for the non-availability, or would that?
That would be my assumption. I have not talked to the vendor about that at this point, but but I see no reason why. I don't foresee that being an issue. That's mine.
So are we in a contractual basis where we have to?
It's a
we just
yearly,
pay
it's
for
a
the
yearly
year?
renewal, yeah, so, that's sort of, the renewals actually due, at the very end of March. So that's,
So we have 1 year.
yeah.
No, we don't, well, we're going to pay a bill now, we don't,
Now's the renewal.
now's the renewal.
Now's the renewal, yes.
I thought you had to
No,
sign
no,
about that.
you're trying to save us $14,000, $926.
So like the last number that I see here is 696 times it was accessed in 2019.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem like a crazy large number to me, I guess, in the grand scheme of how.
No, I mean, and that's spread out over a whole year.
Yeah.
You know, and some of the statistics that we have, you know, we can see the locations that they were accessed, and some of them were, you know, our local municipalities, which, you know, our neighbors could have any number of reasons to want to look at, you know, our financial numbers, even if it's just so that it saves them time from having to contact us to find something simple that they're looking for. So we did see some of that, you know, our neighbors grouped in there, some out-of-state usage as well, and in my opinion, that's probably because Tyler Technologies, you know, offers our portal, you know, as an example of a live client, you know, explore their site, see what what is available to you. So that sort of explains that piece of it.
So just take that point, 34% were out of state, so if it was all that, 34% of the hits are selling the product to someone else. Just making a point.
Under our watch.
So the portal's not been operational now for what, 9 months?
Service, we started having problems with service. I want to say it was back in July of 2021 was when we became aware of that.
Okay. Have you had anybody putting forward a complaint about not having access?
Generally, no.
And the reason why the portal's having these difficulties is because you're transitioning to another platform, I believe?
Yes.
Now, is that on their end where the problem is, or is it on our end, not feeding them the data they need?
They have the data that they need. It's really, you know, the conversations that because like I said, we don't have any control over this platform. So it's not like I can look at it and say, well, this really needs to be grouped here. I have to contact them and say, hey, this needs to be moved from this category to this category, and then I have to wait for them to make that change before we can continue going through and reviewing to make sure everything, you know, lines up where it should.
It seems rather odd that the company is trying to offer this service and they're not offering the service and they're not doing their job.
I don't necessarily have that impression. I just think it's a very large volume of data. It's a lot to go through. So there's a lot of pieces to it. And so
I'm in favor of not renewing this year, because I would have a concern if we were getting rid of, like if it wasn't still transparent, if we didn't still have the information that people were looking for available, that's not the case.
Right.
So really it's a service that I'm with you on.
I second that motion.
Are you making a motion? Ashley?
Yes, I second that.
Okay, so we've got a motion to not renew the contract with Tyler Technologies for this particular piece of software. And Tina has seconded it. Is there any further board comments or questions? Is there any public comments or questions? Doug?
I would be in agreement, but is it worth it to investigate other companies that offer service?
So I would say, given the uptake that we've seen of this product, the answer is not worth it, because we're not seeing like a vast number of residents wanting to have the trending data, which is maybe the one thing this can provide, made available. So I would say no.
At this time.
Unless people come and ask for it, then we revisit it. Okay, so I have a motion and a second. We're going to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed say nay. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Okay, next on the agenda is item number 8, discussion and possible approval of resolution number 7, 2022, allocating funds from the electric vehicle charging station for the West Goshen Township Police Department. So I believe we discussed this previously. Previously, David provided information around the scope of the project, showing it, the procurement of the actual equipment, the installation cost, and the total investment cost of $18,950.25, but that we would apply for a rebate through the PA Department of Environmental Protection to get a rebate of $6,000 against that investment, bringing the total project cost to $12,950.25. And in Chris's memo on this subject, the Capital Reserve Fund has a substantial balance that is easily able to accommodate this kind of investment. Is there any board discussion or questions about this resolution?
I just have a question, Dave Woodward, for the rebate application. When is that due, and how much time do you think till they get back to us on approval or disapproval?
It took quite a while, if I remember, on the other two,
Okay.
and we can't even start to apply for it until the station's up in operation.
I think we may have just gotten the rebates recently,
Yeah.
like
Okay.
within the last month or two.
So it was a while. Okay.
Well,
Sounds like a year.
It took a while to have the one at the community park online, so that held everything up.
Okay. And then you apply for the rebate after the install's completed. Okay.
Yeah, we need a motion to approve resolution number 7, 2022. Hang on, we're just going to make a motion and we'll give you the public
I'll
comment.
make the motion to approve resolution
7, 2022. Is there a second? Thank you, Robert. Any final board comments or questions? Okay, public comments or questions on the resolution?
How many stations is it for?
2.
Two.
2 charging points, 1 actual EV station.
Okay, is that enough for?
We only have 1 police vehicle at present that's electric, that's the Chief's Tesla. And this is intended to provide that capability within the complex.
Because how many more police vehicles do you expect to get that are electric that you can do this now?
That's a great question. Our Sustainability Committee is working with Dave, and we're going to be doing a piece of work this year to have an electrical engineer assess the power within the complex here and what upgrades might be necessary to meet the future requirements of an all-electric vehicle fleet for the police as well as other vehicles within the township use. So we're working on it.
If you're going to go through this once.
Yeah,
We have the capacity to handle this station, but we're really getting to the point where the power distribution and net power input to the site is maxed out. Okay, any other public comments or questions? Ready to take a vote? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next is agenda item number 9, 2022 Arbor Day Proclamation. Discussion and possible approval of the 2022 Arbor Day Proclamation. Ashley, you want to take the lead on this one?
Sure. So, as part of the Tree City, originally as part of the Tree City USA requirements, last year the board officially drew up this Arbor Day Proclamation that we would read every year on Arbor Day in the township. It's a requirement for Tree City, and we finally received that recognition this year, so it's really great. And so our Arbor Day this year is going to be held on April 29th at the Oakland Cemetery, and we will be reading this proclamation there. So I don't believe that anything's really changed too much from last year, right? It's here before you.
You can make a motion to.
I will make the motion, sure.
Thank you, Ashley. So Ashley's made the motion to...
I will second that motion. You did?
Did you?
Yes.
Who did you get, Chris? Was it Ashley? Was it
I didn't
here
Ashley
or
was
Robert?
first and I was next.
All right.
I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't hear you. I missed you.
Okay, so a motion says, is there any public comment or questions about it? I know what you're going to ask. You're going to ask about who Dr. J.T. Rothrock is, aren't you?
Oh, no.
No, that's what, I remember that last year.
The Arbor Day, is there going to be a further effort to try to save trees or, what's the public meeting? I guess I can mention this in our neighborhood. Someone just took out 4 huge trees I can't see a reason why they did it, except they just wanted the wood. Pardon me? No, this was just on Catamount Drive. These trees were, and nowhere's near the house. They just, I think there were 4. With being involved with Arbor Day, kind of doing it,
So, yes, I know what you're saying, Doug. And the answer is that part of the Tree City program that we just got recognized for this year, a huge part of that is outreach and education with the community. So really, we are trying to highlight the fact that we value trees, that trees are good for the community. We want it to be part of just our public persona of the township and what we believe in. Obviously, people who have trees on their property are slow to be able to take them out if they choose to do that. But I think part of the sustainability committee and this board's initiatives are going to be really evaluating the total tree canopy in the township, and obviously we want to, I think, increase that over time. So yes.
Or are we doing the parks now?
The rule is 4 per acre, so I think they did just meet that rule because.
I don't think they did.
You think they exceeded it?
They're not acre lots, so I would say they did.
They were within what they were allowed to do.
No, I don't think they were.
I think that's a question for code enforcement that's best addressed by Rick and his department.
If you have a specific issue with it, a specific property, please provide it to Rick and code enforcement and let them review it. Okay? Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Passes 5-0. Thank you. So item number 10, discussion and possible awarding of 2022 West Goshen Township paving program bids. Chris.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So what's before the board this evening are the bid results for the Township's 2022 paving program and the award recommendation from Carroll Engineering Corporation. I provided a list of roads in this year's paving program from our street superintendent, Mark Bertolami. The mileage this year is a little bit higher, but the square yardage is comparable with previous years. So in reviewing the bid results, there were 3 bids that were received, with the low bidder being Allen Myers LP, which with a bid amount of $1,032,190. And I will allow Dave, Mark, and Chris to interrupt if I get any of this information incorrect. So in our budget, we had about just under $1.2 million allocated for roadway construction between our general and our state highway aid funds. We had $900,000 allocated towards our paving project, so this is about 15% higher than initially budgeted. But a portion of the cost, about $170,000, was projected to come from Aqua. The actual amount ended up being about $35,000 higher when it was actually received. In addition, the township did receive more funds from liquid fuels tax than originally anticipated. While this won't cover everything, it does make up some of the difference. So I would, based on the recommendation and the bids received, and additionally, the base repair work that was included in the bid specifications was on the higher end, so that is going to be evaluated as part of the project, which could ultimately reduce the project cost. However, on the other end, there could be an escalator clause for the price of asphalt. So in terms of the cost, I would recommend awarding the board award the contract to Allen Myers LP based on their bid, and then we split the difference in terms of the overage between the state highway aid and general funds.
Well, according to Township Code, we have to take the lowest bid. Right?
Correct.
So,
well, yeah. But the board also has the right to reject the bids and rebid the project.
Okay.
I would not recommend doing that.
Okay.
Alan Myers did it last year. He did a really good job. So I'm comfortable with Alan.
And the board's comfortable with the fact that the cost is higher than anticipated. There's no desire on the part of the board to adjust the roads or whatever else that's being paid.
And Dave, and I have had a few conversations anticipating that this was going to be the case. In fact, I don't want to put words in either of their mouths, but I think that the result actually came back a little bit lower than we were initially anticipating, given everything that's going on in the world. We thought they would be much higher than what ended up coming back.
Yeah, I understand why.
Yeah, but ultimately, I kind of potentially trying to scale back the project could be detrimental to future projects.
And if I recall right, our treasury report for the end of the first quarter for March showed a higher than expected revenue on some of our budget items. So the amount that we're talking about here that would be coming from the general fund is covered by increased revenues versus our budget expectations. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm just curious how Glasgow mobilization could be so low, 3,000 compared to 50 and 52,000.
Myers base repair milling is 50 cents compared to Glasgow's. It's just how they
Yeah,
they cost it.
how they bid
That's a
it.
big difference, it's huge.
It really is.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't do as much base repair as we put in the project, and that will bring the cost down. But
Okay.
it's there, and if we do have to do it, I think we're getting a bargain to rebuild the roads.
Is there a motion to accept Alan Myers' bid of $1,032,190 for the 2022 West Goshen Township paving program?
I'll make that.
Thank you, Tina. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Is there any further board comments or
Yeah, I
questions?
just want to ask, Mark, was there any, from last year, Alan Myers, did they hit the township for any extras or anything like that as part of their paving project?
I don't think last year we did any base repair.
No, we didn't do any base repair. There was an escalator clause last year. Off the top of my head, about $5,400.
So it benefited you.
No, that was the year before.
Yeah.
For the overall project, did they hit the township for any extras?
No.
Okay.
No, remember when they had to come back and do my neighborhood? Remember they had to like dig in and like they had to come back and re-pave?
Well, that was Pico.
Yeah, that was Pico. And they paid for that, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other board comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? Doug?
It's sort of the same 5 miles.
5.8 miles. Okay, ready to take a vote? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is item number 11, discussion and possible approval of costs associated with the emergency repair work on Loxley Road. Chris.
So, Mr. Chairman, before the Board of Supervisors this evening is information regarding emergency repair work for a sinkhole on Loxley Road. Streets Department investigated a sinkhole that opened up on the roadway near the curve of 196 Loxley Road. I provided a picture of what was observed. They plated the hole and but we're unable to run a camera in the area. The issue is a deteriorated corrugated metal pipe, and depending on the location, Mark, I believe it's like 8 to 10 feet deep.
Yeah, one storm inlet's about 8 feet, and then 160 feet down, it goes to about 10 feet. So that's how deep we'll be digging.
So in terms of the costs associated with this project, Mark obtained a proposal or a quote from to purchase new piping. I know that the board has been looking to, and the township has been looking to get away from using corrugated metal pipe. However, given the lead time on everything and the nature of this situation, we consulted with Mr. Craig, and we purchased aluminized corrugated metal pipe with a 75-year lifespan. Unfortunately, plastic pipe had a 3 to 8 month lead time on it, so we could not go down that direction due to the nature of the situation. Looking at total cost for the project, it would be $34,253.60. What's the company again? It is
Lane Enterprise.
Lane Enterprises. They are a CoStar's vendor. The bulk of the vast majority of the project is for the piping costs, and again, they are a CoStar's vendor. Mark has already placed the order for the piping due to the lead time and supply chain issues. So before the board this evening is to ratify this purchase. In looking at our budget, we do have funds available for in the Capital Reserve Fund for major roadway construction.
Does that include hiring an electrician?
My estimate is in there, electrician. Yeah.
It is in the total.
Yeah, but I have, honestly, I'm not really sure how much that's going to be.
Yeah, because that's a really unknown.
Yeah.
It's for a meter pit for
Yeah,
West White.
yeah.
So how many feet then of the piping are you going to be repairing?
160.
But how did you, I mean, given where this is, where the sinkhole was, you said you couldn't camera at that spot, so you went to upstream, downstream, but where you think this pipe collapsed?
There's two storm inlets, and the center was the sinkhole. So we tried to camera from either end. So we went down to the boxes, tried to camera, and the pipes were just gone.
From both of the boxes?
The bottom of the boxes are fine, but the bottom of the pipe is gone.
From one box to the other, what you can see at the ends anyway.
Pretty much with a
So
flashlight.
that's how you know you need 160 feet.
Yeah.
So even though this, I don't know if it's a Band-Aid repair, would you consider this?
Oh, this is definitely not a Band-Aid.
Because it's a 75-year
Minimum.
lifespan aluminum corrugated metal piping. So we wouldn't go back in and take that out and put plastic piping in. This is just gonna be what it's gonna be for this specific.
It'll be great. Yeah, it'll be fine.
Okay.
As long as
We won't be around.
Yeah. 75 years, it'll be fine.
What's the possibility though, if you're ordering some of the, I know it's a 6 to 8 month or whatever you said it was, 3 to 8 month lead time to HDPE pipe, but getting some of that on order, finding a lay down place somewhere where you can have it available for emergencies such as this, what would be the possibility of doing that?
We do have some, John, but to order that much pipe, it would be costly, and then it would sit around for probably years until we use it.
Well, let's challenge that last bit. So this is like the second sinkhole up in Canterbury in the last couple of years, right? 3 years.
Third.
So I don't think it's going to be sitting around for too long.
Yeah, but every pipe is different size.
Yeah.
Like I
That's
just
the
had a
problem.
sinkhole open on Kirby, and it's a 20-inch pipe.
I know, but could you get a variety of sizes? I know,
John,
like the Ravens Lane, it was 4 foot and 6 foot, you know.
Yeah, but the other problem is if we stock that, the vendors don't stock that much HDPE because of UV light.
Yeah,
It'll degrade the pipe.
Yeah, it'll be sitting there getting degraded.
That's
right?
true. So
We get a little bit.
Stored in.
Yeah, we keep a little bit.
Well, I'm just saying, you know, just, what's that?
It's designed to be underground, not above ground, it's subject to sunlight.
I just hate to see taking corrugated metal pipe out and putting, I know it's aluminized, but nevertheless, putting metal pipe back in it.
We don't like it either. It's our own
I know,
concern.
trying to find a solution here.
Yeah. But we'll embed it in stone, 2B clean stone. A lot of the stuff we're pulling out now is just, there's mud around it, dirt. To me, it wasn't installed properly 50, 60, 70 years ago.
What did they use for fill material?
It's just
Whatever
dirt.
they had, it's
Just
dirt.
dirt. Back then.
Yeah.
And
Mark brings up a good point. If you put clean stone around it so water can stay away from the pipe,
Yeah,
it's going to substantially increase the life of the pipe.
it's like a pea gravel that you use.
Anything allows the water to drain away from the pipe.
But we do want to get away from the CMP. It is more expensive than HCP too.
So when we get the results of the CMP study, in a few months' time, whenever HRG is going to look at all this data, so there's must be quite a lot of the CMP up there in this neighborhood. Is this, I mean, are we going to consider plastic lining pipe, or is the solution going to be, yeah, we know where the bad spots are, it's imminent failure, we're going to go in there and put the plastic pipe in, or both?
It's both, Sean. You got to look at it on a case by case. I mean, you've got some pipe that's just totally gone. You've got some pipe that we can line. The Pine Valley project, there was probably half and half, footage-wise at least, that we lined and we replaced.
Yeah. Okay. Any other board comments or questions? So we need a motion here to approve the emergency repair costs associated with this stormwater work on Loxley Road. John make the motion for a second.
I'll second.
And are we approving a specific amount tonight, Chris?
No, Mr. Chairman, these are just estimates. I just wanted the board to have an idea on what we think the total cost of the project's going to be.
Should we give you a not to exceed price? Is it, what do we What's our motion here tonight then?
The motion's to approve the authorization for the emergency repair, specifically the proposal from Lane, because that's really the only one that's exceedingly high. The remaining cost, I wouldn't want to set a threshold on there, because until the public works crew gets in there could be other things that we don't know about. I trust everything that Mark put in, that was included in the memo to the board. However, I'd be just concerned about the not to exceed.
So our motion tonight is to approve the $20,368 for the lane piping?
Correct.
Okay.
Because the other items are material items.
Okay, so that's your motion, right, John?
Yep.
Okay, well, who was the second? Tina, you okay with that? The second on that?
Except for it's 60 cents.
60 cents. Thank you. Any other public comment or questions? Okay, ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is number 12, discussion and possible appointment of Kathy Massey to fill a vacancy on the West Goshen Township Historical Commission.
So, I'm going to go ahead and just give a brief understanding of what Ms. Massey has already provided with us. Information about her historical experiences and areas of expertise. She's very much looking forward to becoming a member of the Historical Commission. She's already provided a fair amount of relevant historical information for the commission to look at and be part of. And I'm sorry that she's not here today, because I was hoping she would be able to be here in person so she could meet all of you. But hopefully at some point she'll be in the audience, and hope at some point maybe she can actually speak to you directly.
Has she been attending the Historic Commission's meeting?
Yes, she has. In fact, she was basically asked to be a new member, because there is an opening for one of the board members, but he actually needs to leave.
Okay.
We told him he can come and be part of the public comment. This is really very effective, so you're going to get a twofer.
Awesome. Any other board questions or comments?
I just want to say, I know Kathleen and her husband Vince, and she would be a great addition to the Historical Commission.
She live in your neighborhood, John? She live over in your neighborhood?
A couple blocks down there,
So is there a motion then to approve the appointment of Kathy Massey to the West Goshen Historic Commission?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Robin. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, John. Any other comments or questions? Any public comments or questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is number 13, discussion and possible approval authorizing the sale of surplus property for West Goshen Township. Chris.
Mr. Chairman, before the board this evening is a request to sell certain surplus items that are owned by West Goshen Township. This is pursuant to Section 1504 of the Pennsylvania Second Class Township Code. Specifically, the items that are being considered for sale are the old police department speed display trailer. They replaced that unit recently. The one that we currently have, I think, was purchased in about 2000. The previous one was purchased, I think, in 2003, if I'm remembering correctly, sometime in that time frame. There's also a 2010 Ford Escape XLT Hybrid that is a pool car, and a 2012 Ford Explorer XLT, which is the older police department training car. In terms of each of these items, for the speed display trailer, Captain Domidio has informed me that the Westchester Borough Police Department is interested in purchasing this item. The value of the trailer is estimated at approximately $500. And pursuant to the Second Class Township Code, there would not be any bidding required due to the threshold of the estimated value of the equipment, as well as selling it to another municipality. In terms of the other two items, for the pool vehicle, we would convert the other, if this is sold, we would convert the existing 2015 Ford Explorer, which is currently our zoning vehicle, into a pool car. Ms. Gelosian serves also as our zoning officer, and she has access to a municipal vehicle that she can utilize. And the estimated value for this is between $7,845 and $12,913, depending on the condition. In terms of the police department training vehicle, Chief Carroll's previous vehicle was replaced with a Tesla, which Township received in February. And the intent, speaking with Chief Carroll, the intent was to sell the older training vehicle and convert his previous Ford Explorer into a new training vehicle with an estimated value between about $7,100 and $12,800, depending on the condition. For the two vehicles, I would recommend listing these on a service called Municibid, which is an online auction service for municipalities. It is free to use, and I have had very good success with this service in the past.
And that would be different than we've done it previously, right?
Correct. We would still run a legal advertisement announcing the bid, but everything would be done online and then presented to the board for awarding at a public hearing.
Honestly, I thought that the trade-in value for Chief Carroll's old car was going to be a lot higher.
This is all based on Kelly Blue Book value. I just kind of looked it up. I didn't know the specifics about the equipment or anything, so I just did it based on standard equipment. So it may be valued higher. Because there could be information that I'm missing. I can tell you in my experience with Municibid, I've listed things and then sold them for significantly higher than trading value.
Was his original estimate based on his old vehicle that decided, hey, better maybe repurpose that and get rid of this older 2012 XLT? Maybe that was the difference.
Correct. Well, no, this is the older XLT, the value that's in there. It has about 160,000 miles on it.
I was saying, maybe actually was thinking that we were going to trade his old vehicle instead of this particular vehicle we decided in the end to get rid of.
All I know is that I thought it was closer to $20,000.
That might be for the chief's vehicle, which is newer and has less. The chief's former vehicle, which is newer and has less mileage on it.
New training.
Yeah. Got it.
So his would become the training vehicle.
Okay, is there a motion to authorize the sale of this surplus property through Municibid?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Got a motion in a second?
Is the board amenable to potentially selling the police display trailer to Westchester Borough if they're interested?
Yes. So we want to mention motion.
Yes, I'd like to take the motion.
Thank you. Ashley, you're okay to second that motion? Is there any public comment or questions? Okay, ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Agenda item number 14, approval of the bills to be paid for the general fund, the sewer revenue fund, the waste and recycling fund, and the capital reserve fund. Is there a motion to approve the bills to be paid?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Robin. I'll second the motion. Make myself useful tonight.
Yes, sure.
Is there any board comments or questions on the bills to be paid? Okay, is there any public comments or questions? Okay, ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say nay. Motion passes 5-0. Finally, we have agenda item number 15, public comment. Any public comments tonight? No.
Come on.
No public comments.
You got nothing, Doug? Come on.
Okay, I have a motion to adjourn the meeting, please. I'll second the motion. All in favor of adjournment, say aye. Aye. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all for being here. Hanging out, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next time I'm bringing donuts. That's dinner.
It's really a meeting between
Hey, Tina, is Oakland Cemetery the only place?
Oh, wait, what's, I don't know. I have to keep asking. Oakland's, yeah.
Okay. Hi, nice to meet you. I do. I am a professional planner for over 8 years.
Yeah.
That's my expertise.
Okay.
Yeah.
Shocked to see me here.
I think it's a testament to your service to the township.